office is right next door with Mary Wardell's team. And we are now representing the entire university based at the law school. So we're thrilled to have people from all over the university here. And we're especially excited to have such a wonderful speaker. Many of you know Father Sane, but if you don't know him, let me briefly introduce him. Barwende Sane is, as you know, a Jesuit priest, originally from Burkina Faso. He actually graduated from Santa Clara University, and he is a theologian and a peace activist and a human rights activist and a civil society leader and a scholar, and now he is here pursuing his doctorate in education at USF. So we have riches here in our own community. We wanted to give a chance to people to share and to listen to Father Sane. So for about many years, throughout the western part of Africa, especially in regions of conflict, in the Congo, Chad, Ivory Coast, Central African Republic, Father Sane was involved in peace activities. He founded 2 civil society organizations dedicated to nonviolence and peace. He's an activist in training on nonviolence and on reconciliation and restorative justice. He's written many books. One of his books, by the way, is available in English, and I have to endorse it. You can get it on Amazon. It's a beautiful book called From the Inner Mountain to the Common Good. It's an interpretation of the theology of Howard Thurman and Martin Luther King Jr. In application to the steps that you need to learn to become an effective, nonviolent revolutionary of love. And so we have a tremendous guest, and we're thrilled to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's a real blessing to have you here, and I am really privileged this afternoon. First and foremost, I would like to pay a real homage to all African Americans who have sacrificed their life for civil rights movements. And if you can have a black person like me to speak here this afternoon, it's because some have sacrificed their life, including Dr. King. And it's a real blessing to have Clarence Jones. I have been reading many of your writings, including I Have a Dream with many of your insights, so I'm very blessed. Thank you, Jonathan, for this great opportunity. I am very grateful to the USF Institute for Nonviolence and Social Justice, the Office of a Vice Provost for Diversity, Engagement, and Community Outreach. Dr. Erin, thank you for being here. It's a joy to work with Learn Center. And to the USF Program in African Studies, the USF Department of Politics. Thank you all. Thank you, Tim, my superior, to be here. My classmates, professors, it's a blessing to have you. And thank you, Loria, because you are the one who helped me to make this presentation. Yeah, no, I see.
Oh, it's there?
Yeah.
Okay. You found it. Okay, good.
Okay, my presentation will be focused on these specific points. My experience in DRC, in Chad, in Ivory Coast, in the Central African Republic, my theorization of peace, the relations I built, the challenges of Africa today. But let us first go to Africa to start. So this is Mama Africa. For question of time, I stop here. But this is our continent, and we still have many problems for development. We have problems of violence, disease, and all the rest. But we are making our way. So now I'm going to share with you my experiences in some of these specific countries. My experience with Kinshasa's street children in Congo, it was in 2005. Part of my religious life was to be sent to Kinshasa to spend 2 months with a group of children called street children in the center where I had to take care of them. These abandoned children were suffering the consequences of war and conflicts happened in Congo. And living with them left me with questions. Questions I would have later to connect to my encountering with Howard Thurman's readings. What has the word that the religion of Jesus had to say to those, to the man, had to say to the man with his back against the wall? This question of Howard Thurman is still speaking deep within me. And the second one is my question: how do I define my religious life, my religious commitment to God as a call to care for the oppressed, the most vulnerable, and the marginalized? My second experience was in Chad. I was sent in Chad in 2008 in a Jesuit high school to teach philosophy. And unfortunately, came the Battle of N'Djamena. It began on February, and forces were inviting themselves in our city. And we were struggling with this question: staying or leaving. And I have come to understand that discernment becomes very hard when you have to decide between staying with or leaving those whom you are entrusted in conflict zone. After that, I was sent to Ivory Coast. At that time, I was studying theology. It was in 2011. And we experienced the Second Ivorian Civil War. And we were obliged to leave Abidjan when our institute started to receive some bullets. And the superiors just told us, "You are the youngest, leave. If we die, you will bring us our memory in the future." Fortunately, they didn't die, but we received some rebel groups. They came and they took everything. It was from that moment in 2011 that I have decided to connect my religious life with building peace. So these are some of my experiences in these 3 countries. Now we are moving to my commitment to nonviolence, peace building, and restorative justice in Central African Republic. After my ordination in 2013, I was sent to Central African Republic because I wanted to do peace building. And my provincial just told me, go to this country and do something. But it was a very dangerous place. And God willing, I was very protected. My involvement in this country was mainly based on 3 pillars: theorizing my understanding of peace, training students in peace building, and founding 2 civil organizations, building relations with decision makers. Theorizing my understanding of peace. Peace is for most connected to freedom, tranquility, harmony, and positivity. Because Africa suffered slavery, colonization, and many divisions, many Africans are very demoralized. And I have come out with this book, Révolution pour une Afrique nouvelle. In English, we could say Revolution for a New Africa, 151 pyramids to make the United States of Africa. In this book, I am sharing my anger against slavery, colonization, our African divisions, and I am also celebrating the beauty of Africa, the richness of our traditions, and I am calling all Africans to unite. It's my testament to Africa. After that, I came out with this second book, Réaliser les droits humains avec Martin Luther King. How can we make human rights really work? For me, the most important for humanity is not to write or to speak about human rights, but to make them really being applied. And Dr. King was for me like a school. When I read all his, some of his great reflections, I came out with this book to propose a way to realize human rights. And after that, this is my third book, From the Inner Mountain to the Common Good, with Howard Thurman and Dr. King. When I went to Central African Republic, I wanted to change everything, to change institutions, but after 3 years, I went back in readings, Dr. King, Howard Thurman, Mahatma Gandhi, and I have come to understand if you want change, you have to be the change. And in this book, I am just proposing a way to walk towards the common good. There are specific steps to go through. Otherwise, we can never realize what we need. And after that, I wrote this book. It's a peace education handbook for trainers in Central African Republic, for people to use and build peace. After that, I came out with this book, The Madness of Thomas Sankara. This man was a revolutionary in my country. He got killed in 1987, but he is still living in our mind. For him, Africa is a rich continent in natural resources, in humanity, and we can use our immense latent resources to develop the continent because our soil and subsoil are rich. We should undertake to live as Africans. It's the only way to live free and to live in dignity. So these are the books I am using to teach my students. The second pillar, training students and founding 2 civil organizations. I have been using the literature of Mahatma Gandhi with this understanding of knowledge, of nonviolence, as a philosophy. And to Mahatma Gandhi, it's very important, if we want to have peace, a developed society, to work with nonviolence. And one of his great messages was that one. My understanding of peace building. You see on these specific pictures 2 elephants. They are fighting, looking at different directions. And after they got tired, they have come to understanding. Africa is like that. There is enough food for our continent, but because of trouble, sometimes we are unable to take advantage of our riches. This is my understanding of building peace in Africa. And Desmond Tutu is one of my favorite author when he helped us understand the meaning of restorative justice. You know, restorative justice is deeper than retributive justice. Because with restorative justice, you can put together perpetrators of evil and victims, communities, and those who have offended this community. but it's never easy. During the process of reconciliation in South Africa at the end of apartheid, a young man was asked to forgive, as Mandela did. In reply, he said, "If I had received the support Mandela received, including the money they gave him, and if I was made president like him, I would have forgiven not only the whites who are in South Africa, but all the whites throughout the world. But look, you ask me to forgive while I am still suffering the consequences of apartheid and living in this poverty. Forgiveness is not easy when people are suffering. But how did I use these values to apply in Central African Republic? For me, nonviolence is a great philosophy. Peace building, a process, and restorative justice, a great tool. I use this knowledge to teach peace and nonviolence, to educate the students, Christians and Muslims together. Because one of the reasons we had a conflict in Central Africa, it was based on religious misunderstandings. And in the center I was leading, the University Catholic Center, I brought together Muslims and Christians to educate them. And you see this date, 18 January. It's the date we celebrate Dr. King. And at this day, I gathered the students in 2016 and we celebrated the greatness of this man. I invited together priests, imams, pastors in many communities activities. I also organized some specific trainings for disabled persons, and some were also marginalized. But one of the most interesting things I had to do in Central Africa was to go to prison to have chaplaincy with inmates. And in listening to them, I have come to understand that violence for the sake of violence does not exist. Many commit violence to achieve justice or to protect themselves. Some commit violence in reaction to violence. Others commit violence to replace the absence of law enforcement or to help themselves when facing poverty. Some victims became offenders, and some offenders became victims. It's very entangling. You cannot condemn, because the root cause are sometimes very systemic in structures, and sometimes very human. And I used to tell to some of my friends there, the difference between you and I, the difference between you and us outside, it is not because we are perfect and you are worse. The only difference is that you are being caught, arrested in doing evil, and we are not yet arrested. All of us, we are evildoers. But God does never sleep. He is witnessing everything. In addition, I have been also integrating African values in my trainings. The first one is this principle, we call I am because we are. This specific principle are being developed by philosopher John Mbiti. At the center of African morality is human life. Life is sacred. The family includes children, parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, brothers and sisters, departed relatives, the unborn members who are still in the loins of the living. According to John Mbiti, nobody exists by himself or herself. Everyone is a member of a community. Whatever happens to the individuals happens to the whole group, and whatever happens to the whole group happens to the individual. The individual can only say, I am because we are, and therefore I am. The second principle is called ujamaa. It's a Kiswahili word. It means unity, supporting one another. This philosophy was used in Tanzania by President Julius Nyerere during the post-colonial period. After that, we have the principle of Burkindilim. It means uprightness. This principle was part of the revolution of Thomas Sankara in Burkina Faso. And we have the principle of Ubuntu. Ubuntu means it's a call for human dignity, human rights, for community relationships. None of us comes into the world fully formed. We will not know how to think, how to walk, how to speak. All of this, we learn it from our community. A person is a person through other persons. We cannot be a person without your community. And we have a principle of bisoite, the sense of the us. In Africa, it's very important to value the community. It's not only I, me, mine, but it's above all us. And this philosophy is developed in Congo. Whatever affects one directly affects all the community. And philosopher Chamalenga Ntumba is the one who developed this specific notion. And after that, we have the notion of Zokwe Zo. It means all men and women are equal, and they deserve respect. This is the sense of civilization for Barthélemy Boganda. When he speaks about civilization, it means Zokwezo. You have to respect your fellow brothers and sisters. And all of these trainings enable me to set up two civil organizations. The first one is called Le Réseau des Volontaires de la Paix, Volunteers for Peace, specifically students. And the second organization is called Le Conseil National de la Non-Violence Active, National Council for Active Nonviolence. And in both of them, you have Muslims, Christians, unbelievers, and everybody who is ready to work for peace. And I use all of these groups to campaign for peace, to work, because I have learned Dr. King used to work for peace. And I also did it in Central African Republic, going to speak some specific persons who people don't want to frequent a lot. But I was not alone to do what I have been able to do. First and foremost, I was very supported by my community. Like here, I am very supported by my community. Reason why you see my superior here. In Central African Republic, it was likewise. But God was the one I used to be very related. And second, I got a chance to meet Pope Francis in 2015. And I also was very supported by the local church, by the people who were there. I was also very supported by international and national organizations. This is the president of Central African Republic, Professor Faustin Archange Touadéra. He received us, he listened to us, and we asked him to apply what we have been doing in the nation. After that, I got a chance to invite His Excellency Jeffrey Hawkins, the US ambassador in Central African Republic. He came to our place to celebrate Dr. King's Day with us. And at this day, he claimed, I have a dream. and it was a real joy for us. So all of these good people were supporting us in our mission. So this is what I have been doing. So my third point will be about the challenges of Africa today. Most of African countries are still poor. Some are suffering terrorist attacks, including my country, Burkina Faso, Mali, Nigeria. And democracy remains a big challenge. Corruption, discrimination, disease, hunger are still there. However, the biggest challenge for us Africans is the continuation of the pact of colonization. The exploitation of the continent and the imposition of Western leaders' agenda in Africa. Do you remember the conference of Berlin? It happens in 1884 to 1885. Africa was divided like a birthday cake between the powerful European countries. I was not born at that period, but I can tell you we are still suffering the consequences of this evil. Because these countries in Europe still consider us as their properties. And this is not easy. And this is what Pope Francis said. Europe should stop exploiting Africa and invest in ways that benefit the continent more, including by sharing minerals, wealth, and equitability. We must invest in Africa, but invest in an orderly way and create employment, not to go there to exploit it. When a country grants independence to an African country, it is from the ground up, but the soil is not independent. And then people outside Africa complain about hungry Africans coming to Europe, migrants, and all the rest. There are injustice there in Africa. In our collective unconscious, there is something inside us that says Africa must be exploited. This is what Pope Francis is telling to European countries. But this is not all. Please, listen to this.
Colonizers were leaving the continent between 1958 and 1961. France did something that was just downright terrible. Made the African leaders sign what they call the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. France made the Francophone countries sign the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. Allow me to highlight a few of the items in the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization, and I urge all of you to Google it and read it. And if that does not disgust you, I don't know what will. First, the French said, well, you see, we built a few schools, a few roads, a few hospitals, taught you about the fork and knife and sitting on a table and eating with utensils. We're going to call that the colonial debt. And for that you shall pay to the rich. In addition, you will deposit 85% of your bank reserves with the Minister of Finance, the French Minister of Finance. Collectively, the Minister of Finance, the French Minister of Finance will take all your deposits. It was 85% back then. It's now down to about 60. The French Minister will invest that money in the French Stock Exchange under the French name. You may or may not know the returns. Today, France is taking out of Africa, Francophone Africa, over $500 billion. Over $500 billion. We, the Africans, the poor countries, we're giving France over $500 billion a year. Year in, year out. And no one is talking about it. The latest figures are saying for every $14 billion that France takes out of finish investing it, they are realizing upwards of 300 billion for every 14 billion. So in actuality, France is taking out of Africa trillions of dollars year in, year out. Should any of those countries wish to access some of their own money that they deposited with France, they have to submit their own financial reports for the country. And if approved, they can only access up to 20% of that money as a loan and commercial interest rates. Figure that one out. That is our reality. It gets better. They were also told that if you need any military equipment, you can only purchase it from France. Your military can only be trained by France. That France will have military presence in your own country and can invade you without notice. Should they fail, French interests are being violated. Language of instruction shall be French. All your minerals discovered, yet to be discovered, France has the first right of refusal. All the contracts, big contracts, private and public, French companies have the first right of refusal. And my brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, if you were to go home and run for president, and your first day in office, your chief of staff comes to you and says, oh, by the way, Mr. President, Madam President, before you start, I must read you the do's and don'ts as stipulated by the pact for the continuation of colonization. And your chief of staff reads this to you. What power do you have? This is precisely what our colonizers wanted. To leave us in a position that no matter how hard we try, trying to get a leg up is mission impossible.
So this is our very sad reality. And what is really very painful for people like me and many young people in Africa, it's when we are listening to countries like France getting the audacity to call us poor, while it is us who are really sending money to France. 14 countries, former colonized country by France, are still under the banner of this colonial country. And as she said, people don't talk about it. And she got fired from her job last month here in the US because of this speech. And I can tell you, this is, for me, the biggest challenge we have in Africa right now. When we speak about building peace, human rights and all the rest, you can do your best. I gave my best when I was in all of these countries. But when you have the military power of French, and even when you are talking like me, sometimes your cell phone number can be recorded. You don't know by who, but they will be listening to you. So this is our biggest challenge. And I'm going to close with this video. What did I keep in mind at the end of the day? For me, after all of these experiences, I have come to understand life is short, precarious, and unpredictable. You are here today, tomorrow you are not here anymore. Yet life is beautiful, a precious gift. I have developed trust in God and trust in my ancestors, convinced that I am born to fulfill a mission, like each of us. And if I am still alive, it is because I have something to do. And I think it's the same for each of us. To say what I think, to never postpone the good to make, to never postpone the forgiveness to release, and to be committed to work for peace and human flourishing. So thank you very much for your attention.